Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media Group, and tonight we have one of our urban professionals that we're featuring, Miss Yvette Riches. I met her. I think my first meeting with you was about 6 or 7 years ago, when I called over to the church and you were over there, and I've watched you over the years and had a little interaction with you, and I felt that you really have an interesting story to tell about your life. And so, as we say, let's get the ball rolling. You know the drill.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I am sitting in Dayton, Ohio, just finishing defending my dissertation for my doctorate of ministry. And so this has been a very interesting time for me in my life. I was raised as a military child. I'm an Army brat, proud of it. And I think that has set the ground and foundation for me. Born in Burlington, North Carolina. And if you know anything about military life, you move every 3 years. We moved from Burlington, North Carolina to Alaska. Well, in Burlington, my brother and I were born. In Alaska, my youngest sister was born. And from Alaska, we moved to Massachusetts. And then we spent 5 years in Mannheim, Germany, back to North Carolina. And then my dad retired in 1982 in Savannah, Georgia at the Hunter Army Air Force Base. What is so significant about being a military child is that you have an experience every time you move. People would say that, how do you not meet a stranger? I said, well, because as a military child, you are thrown into a classroom after your parents move and you meet new people. It is just part of the makeup, part of the dynamic of being a military child. And so after leaving and graduating from high school in Savannah, Georgia, I went to college in Greensboro, North Carolina, to North Carolina A&T State University, Aggie Pride. I majored in mass communication. And while at A&T, I tried out for the track team. And what was interesting is that I was always a person that was involved in activities. And so in the Army, they had AYA, Army Youth Association. My dad was even one of the coordinators of that when we were in Germany. That gave a way for children to be involved in basketball, football, softball, and cheerleading. Well, I was a cheerleader. Well, when we came back to the United States, I was a cheerleader, but I played the other sports. Well, it was time for high school. And I can remember going out for basketball. No, didn't make the high school team. Softball, didn't catch the ball. And they said, well, try out for track. And I was like, I'm not really running. So I learned about throwing the discus and shot put. Hey, turned out to be pretty good. I went to state, representing my high school my senior year. So when I get to A&T, I had not even thought about being an athlete. But I saw a person walking across the campus and they had tracksuit and she was full-figured like me. And I said, are you on the track team? She said, yes. She said, I throw the discus and shot put. I said, well, I did that in high school. She said, were you any good? I said, I went to state. Well, long story short, met with the coach through. They gave me a walk-on scholarship. So that was very interesting because at A&T, in order to keep your scholarship, you also had to run cross country. So I don't want to tell you all the backstory secrets that we had, how we completed those courses, but we did. But it gave you a sense of completion, an opportunity to show that if you work hard, if you're dedicated, you can make it through. So after graduating at A&T, came to Kansas City, been there since 1985. And while I was there, my aunt was a member of Centennial United Methodist Church, but she sent me to St. James, with her neighbor, Camel Warwick. And I got a job at Macy's in management. And Regina Tony, a member, said, come with me to revival. So after going to revival and going with Calma, I joined St. James in 1986, which was significant because being in the military child, there were different religion entities that would come on the base. So this was the first time that I was really able to be committed and connected to a church. And so joining St. James, been a member since then, being involved, engaged, and really beginning to see God work in my life. And so from there, I was hired by State Farm. And July 13th, a lot of people think 13 is a bad number. We know that is not true in Kansas City. But July 13th, 1987, and I resigned from there in May 15th, 2015, because God was calling me to do something different. And a lot of people were like, okay, you've been here 28 years and you are leaving a company that is in the Fortune 500, established. But I listened to God, which has taken me on a pathway that has been a true blessing. In the course of time working with State Farm, I was very involved with the United Methodist Women at St. James. And from there, the leaders like Liz Williams, who was a leader in United Methodist Women and at St. James. I was invited to United Methodist Women by Brenda Sylvan, Alice Ellison, community activists, in regards to this might be an area that you can educate, learn, invest in God's work for women. So I just delved right in. Levels of leadership at all level. And then one of my dear mentors, May Gray, who was the first African-American president for United Methodist Women, I got to watch her in action. I got to watch her put platforms together, trainings together, in encouraging opportunities and being an inspiration. Little did I know that in 2012, I too would be elected national president of this organization that she led and set some groundbreaking historical work for the United Methodist Church globally. I'm not just talking in Kansas City, I'm talking about globally and bringing the Charter for Racial Justice, which is something that is needed today. So after being the national president, I had opportunities to serve on boards and agencies. And currently right now, with the United Methodist Church, I'm on the World Methodist Council, which means if you are a Methodist, you are a part of this council. So working the dynamics of seeing how we can do God's work, helping alleviate the suffrage, people that are struggling. How do we help the people that are poor, the lost, the forgotten, the people that feel that there's no hope? So I have truly been blessed by the opportunities that God has made for me. Now, I waited late in life to go back and get my master's. I got a master's in leadership from Walden and graduated there in 2013, started the Master's of Christian Ministry at United Theological Seminary here in Dayton. And I was ready to graduate in 2019. And the college called me, the seminary called me, Dr. Bridget Witherspoon. Oh, by the way, we have enrolled you into the doctorate of ministry. And I was like, well, I'm a layperson. I'm not clergy. I don't have an appointment at a church. They were like, that your leadership that you have given to this church speaks volumes. And I'm not saying that to be arrogant, but I'm saying that to say to the lay people, we have a responsibility and we have a calling from God. And so if God calls you for an assignment, he will also open the doors and make a way for you. So I have been truly blessed to have the opportunity to be a part of this doctoral program. I graduated in May, and I can say that the work that has come out of this doctorate program is going to be beneficial not only for women in Kansas City, but all over the world. My title and theme of my project was A Framework of Empowerment of Women of Color and the United Methodist Church.
I want to interrupt you for a minute. I want to interrupt you for a minute before.
Okay, go right ahead.
Before my mind strays somewhere. I want to know, when did you, because off camera, we talked just for a second and I was telling you about my calling. When did you recognize God had given you this calling?
I can remember clearly in 92, sitting in the sanctuary when I heard Reverend Emmanuel Cleaver II say, there's more to being a Christian than sitting in a pew. And I was like, now what does that mean? And so that has always resonated in my mind. There's more to being a Christian than sitting in a pew. And a lot of people get lost. I go to church on Sunday, I sit in the pews, and that's it. But God has more for us to do than just sit in the pew. Church work is not in the church. It's outside the building. And so from there, God just continued to lead me, direct me, open pathways for me to see the greater opportunities and to see those that need the help.
So essentially you're saying when Rev had that conversation, or that was his subject, that was the moment, because that was the epiphany for me. A gentleman named John Fleming, Jim Watts had invited him to speak at Watkins Cultural Center, and I was homeless and stuff. And I came there. I didn't want to come because I didn't even have the car fare, but I came and Fleming said, God wakes you up every morning. What are you doing with your life? That's what he had spoke, and he was talking about young Black men and
Yes.
what he would like to see for his daughter. And I was like, Carlos, you having a pity party, because I had lost my company per se and things just was going bad. But that spoke volumes to me, and that's why I was interested. When did you find the calling? Because at that moment is when Cascade was born, basically.
Excellent. Yes, God will reveal things to you. And I think it was a combination of things. Hearing that, and then when I was working, I had a supervisor that was not very nice. I'll just say that. And I was like, how do I fight this? I'm a person that when you used to take those tests back in the day, and it turned out I was a pleaser. So I was like, well, maybe if I'm nicer, maybe if I'm kinder, and that did not work. So God was saying, okay, am I going to handle this situation, or are you going to handle the situation? If I'm going to handle it, there's a few things you need to do. You need to just be in the word. And I took that literally. I would put scripture around my desk that I would remind me everywhere I turned, I always saw the word. And so I can remember giving his name on the altar at New Year's Eve. And then once I did that, I felt a wash over me of God saying, I have this. And from that point forward, I just went to work, did my job, and I didn't worry about it because I knew I was going deeper in the word and I was getting closer to Christ.
So who has been some of your main mentors? I know you mentioned Alice Ellison, and Alex, we go way back, and I got a lot of respect for them and what they do. I don't know whether she might have had any part played in your life.
Well, yes, Alice has been a supporter of mine. Like I said, first of all, the most influential person in my life has been my mother. My mother lived to 96 years old, Swanee Moore Richards. She passed away 11/18/18, but she was a woman that set the bar high. She was a lover of people, a lover of Christ, and a believer in education. And so she always would tell us, keep God first. in everything that we did. So, of course, my mother, I had two amazing grandmothers that I got to sit under. When I was at A&T, my mother's mother in Burlington, I would go to visit her on the weekend. And I would just have the best time just talking and learning and engaging. And so my grandmother was a person who had a sixth grade education, but she owned her business all of her life. She owned the first cab company in her community. And so she was like, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. She was a woman of hope. And then my dad's father was from Sedalia, Missouri. My dad is from Sedalia, Missouri. Julia Christina Diggs Richards. Oh my gosh, she was a woman of faith. And so she just truly believed. I mean, I watched her say, if God has it for you, it is so. I don't question it. And we're like, Granny, are you going to, if it's God's will? And she lived to 105 in 11 months. And I always said the 11 months because she said, count everything that God gives you. And so in terms of that. Now, in terms of women that I've had an opportunity to meet, engage with, like I said, Alice Ellison. When I came to the church, her sister Vanessa and I were the Brownie leaders at St. James together for many years. And then so when I started being involved with United Methodist Women, Alice Ellison was like, she just took me under her wing. When I needed letters of recommendation, I would go to Alice. And Alice is the type of person that will call you and tell you what's right, wrong, and indifferent. And she does it in such a nice, loving, kind
Won't
voice.
she do that? She
will tell you off, and you don't even know you've been told off because she does it in such a loving, kind voice. That is Alice. So the Smith family just took me in when I moved here. Their father, Lee Smith, and my uncle Robert Harris, were best of friends.
I knew both of them. Her dad was on Vine.
Yes. So they actually, the Smith boys called me Niece Rabbit because my uncle was called Fat Rabbit. And so just knowing that she would take time out if I need a letter of recommendation. When I started applying for different positions within the United Methodist Women's Organization, teen and college women, Liz Williams, who's passed away, she was like, Yvette, I believe this is something that you need to apply for. You need a letter of recommendation. Alice Ellison was like, I'll write the letter. And so just encouraging you, just motivating you. Another lady, Leola Evans, she is our matriarch of our United Methodist Women's Organization, but she shows you how to carry yourself with dignity and pride. She is a trailblazer. She's a person who knows the word, but has a sense of humor that just has you cracking up. And then May Gray. I mean, I can't say enough about having the opportunity to sit at the feet of a person who was a trailblazer in the history of the United Methodist Women's Organization. She did work with Jimmy Carter. She spoke in regards of the civil rights and the importance of education and the importance of making sure Black women's voices were heard. And so I just love the opportunity to travel with her, be in the same setting with her, and glean from her all her wisdom and guidance. There's other women that I could share, but those are some of the women that I just know have just made a significant impact in my life.
You know what? You're so real on this. The wording, I'm not the best with the language, but you said to sit at their feet.
Yes.
That I'm saying that changed the tone to me. And some of the things that you said that you learned from them, how Alice could be so nice and would have conducting yourself with dignity. I wish I had a little more savoir-faire about myself. I'd be acting like a savage, but I
No,
think,
God makes everybody in a unique way. That's one of the things I learned in the work that I did for my doctorate is that one of my mentors and United Methodist pastor, Dr. Rudy Rasmus, talks about God makes us so unique that he wants us to be the way we are, because the way we are brings about a difference and a change in the atmosphere with different people. So you being you and having your story is so unique that it makes people stop and pause to realize that you are an overcomer. You are an achiever. And so those are things that we have to learn to celebrate. And sometimes as Black people, we feel if we celebrate our goodness and what God has done, we're being arrogant. We're being pompous. We're trying to show out. No, we're not. We are honoring God. Because if you can't celebrate the victories that he gives you here, you definitely can't celebrate them there.
tell me this, what do you have planned for 2022?
Well, that's interesting. I graduate in May, but from now until then, I will continue to do the work that I have. I have so many things I'm doing. I serve on 4 boards in Kansas City. Flourish Furnishing, which is the only furniture bank in the Kansas City area. And so if you're coming out of homelessness, battered women, veterans, and you have a servants agency, Flourish Furnishings works with the case manager to provide housing furniture for your apartment of your home. So I sit on that board and I work with the community director trying to get volunteers and people to engage. I am on the board of Cornerstones of Care, which is an organization that really affects the Black community because the majority of the young people that are in foster care in this program are African-American young children. So finding healthcare providers, education, keeping them safe, reunifying them with their families. The other one is newly rolled into Della Lamb, and you know they're dealing with the immigration.
They're dealing
I
with a
serve
whole lot of things across
a
the board
whole,
in sports for the young ladies.
oh my,
And
amazing.
yeah,
Yes, yes.
I'm,
So
I'm,
those
I'm on
are,
top of it.
yeah, those are United Methodist Women's agencies. And then the other one I serve on locally is Center of Conflict Resolution. Now, this one, I didn't even know they existed. They're right at 63rd and Paseo, but the work they're doing, trying to solve the problems of not only families, but rifts between students in school, agencies, teachers, and students. It's just a way to help alleviate the conflict. So working on conflict resolution and things of that nature. And outside of that, I serve on a board in St. Louis, with children, family. I've been on that board for several years that deal with children aging out of foster care, children that are picked up from being sex trafficking. And so just trying to continue to educate. And then one of the boards I serve on is the CM Merit Foundation, which was established for my college roommate's daughter who was killed in a road rage incident, and they wanted to establish an endowment so other students can continue their college in the chemistry department at A&T. So they're like, oh my gosh, you're on so many things. I said, but it is not me. It is a thing that God has allowed me to have an opportunity to serve on the General Board of Global Ministries, the mission board for the entire United Methodist Church. So I can see how things are done. I can see where the money is going, how we're helping, so then I can take that experience and help other boards and agencies to be able to lift up and achieve their goals.
So with that being said, do you have any closing words of wisdom for my audience?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you. The closing words would be, now is the time. We have to understand that God has empowered us. We are empowered to do our work, but understand this, You don't have to do it alone. I love partnership, collaboration, and networking. Those are the three things that I think as a person that works in the community, engages in the community, if you can align yourself with someone else who's doing the same work you're doing, uplift them, partner with them so we can help change the trajectory of what's going on in Kansas City.
I think that's appropriate in closing. And as we always, no, first I got to steal Jim Watts' closing lines. Make him mad, Yvette. When he does his shows on our network, he always closes with, "It was a plum pleasing pleasure to have you on the show, Yvette." So now that I've stolen his closing, we'll do mine. And Jim, you better not try to steal this. When you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself.
Absolutely.
This program is brought to you by